Those chickens are up to something.
Quiet. I'm on to something.
They're organised, I know it.
We are in a massive age of animation. We see a lot of different aspects and elements, from the invigorating new ways of animation, of course, with Spider-Verse, Arcane, Mitchell vs. Machines, and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, the improving details of animation from the likes of Pixar, Disney, and DreamWorks, and even the likes of beautiful animation that stands test of time from the likes of Studio Ghibli, of course, with like recent films like Boy and the Heron. But we are not delving into those studios or type of animation today. Those will come later in other reviews. Disney and Pixar in particular, I have one cooking up right now. But instead, we're talking on the form of an art of animation that was big in the early days of animation, even back as far as like the 60s or 70s. And this is, of course, in the realm of the 3D style and comes tradition of stop motion animation. We've seen this style with the likes of Tim Burton providing with, like, Night Before Christmas, The Corpse Bride, and some elements of Beetlejuice, with I think the sequel even also including some of it here. Like animation providing new stories adaptations, the likes of Coraline and Paranorman, with I think a remaster of that first movie coming out later this year. And of course, the studio that has been pioneering the style, the focus of our review for today, and this comes with the Bristol-based animation studio of Aardman Animations. The studio has seen a fair few successes throughout the years, with their most known characters coming to us in the form of the Oscar-winning shorts of Wallace and Gromit, and their popular series of Shaun the Sheep. Well, the focus of this review discussion relates to their first full-length feature film from almost 25 years ago, and this comes in the form of the film of Chicken Run. But today we're not going to delve into the first movie, we're talking about the recently released sequel of Dawn of the Nugget. And we're asking the question of, is this film any good, or has it turned up quite foul? Well, there is elements that could be improved, but personally, I enjoyed this film from beginning to end as a form of a tasty treat that released around the holidays, and I will be delving into all my pros and cons of this legacy sequel.
The Dawn of the Nugget.
So before we delve a little into the story of the follow-up, I will give a rundown of what followed on before this movie and how the story came to be where it is now. So just give a little bit of rundown of the original film in case you haven't seen it before, or you haven't seen it in a good while and you need to get you up to speed for the sequel. So the original was set in a place known as Tweedy's Farm, where we have a focus on the chickens of the film, led by Ginger. Now, they know they are used to produce eggs for the farmers of bumbling oaf Mr. Tweedy and the more sinister wife of Mrs. Tweedy. When they stop producing, they are killed and eaten, so she has come up with her plans to help them escape, but so many plans seem to fail. They've tried going under it, and they've gone over it. They've tried multiple ways, and there's classic Babs thinking it's all a holiday. But this comes into play in form of a miracle of the appearance of Rocky, an American rooster who flies in, has a bit of a rough landing, and injures his wing. And it gives Ginger and the other chickens the idea they will not walk out, but they will find a way to fly out. But after a bit of hijinks, pie machines, liars reveal, and construction work, the chickens and Rocky escape the farm, stop the production of Mrs. Tweedy's new scheme of not making minuscule profits, and find their freedom for all of chicken kind. And it is where we will find ourselves in the sequel of them having escaped from and finding peace. Now we shall delve into giving a rundown of the plot for this film. As Mr. Tweedy put it, those chickens are up to something. So the plot for this one is, having escaped from the farm, Ginger and Rocky welcome a new adventurer into our lives with their daughter Molly. And all seems to be peaceful and a happy ending for Ginger and the rest of the flock. But soon this band of fearless chickens will have to flock together to save poultry kind when one of their own gets taken, must also stop an unsettling nearby high facility farm that's cooking up something suspicious. So as plot goes for this one, it's more of the basis that where all the likes of the original film had the tone and feel of like a wartime film, with the most clear inspiration of course being The Great Escape, but with chickens. This new film starts off as a peaceful life after the terror aesthetic, as soon enough once they are head back to the mainland, becomes more of like a heist film in the forms of like a family friendly version of James Bond or Mission Impossible. And it's intriguing to see what they can do with the likes of a film of chickens getting to high stakes situations with some unique gimmicks and challenges. And I think for the concept in mind, it's an enjoyable watch for its concept. I think it is done well for being a simple plot. Sure, it's not to the level of going too over the top, and it's not as dark as the original, but it works out well overall. But score-wise, I think I'd give it a 7. 7 I think feels reasonable enough for the story here.
And we are the chickens.
Now, of course, like any project, a lot of movies always have a select number of people that are joined together to form an ensemble. This film sees a select number of familiar faces, though with some slight changes for a few that I'll get into, and some new additions to the team, and some will be talked about individually, and some will be bundled together. I'll give my thoughts on each of them below, and in depth as much as I can. So, of course, we'll start with the leader, and that's, of course, the group leader of the Resistance, the one that inspired the escape for the freedom of all her kind, and that's, of course, with Ginger. She still has that sense sense of leadership and will make it a mission to protecting those that have escaped from the past and not have to deal with all that terror again. But you'll have to rise up to the challenge again once you get her child back from suffering the same fate. Still has the element of feeling like her character from the original, with one small caveat. You see, in the midst of all of this development for the film, they decided that they were going to be changing the voice role for Ginger from the original voice actress of Julia Swalhalla to Fataween Newton. And there are some moments where the new voice is not too bad, but there are moments I feel that would work more with real actors. Now, Julia had mentioned in the past that she was all for coming back as the voice, but according to her own statement, the reason why was they thought she was too old to play the character, which is odd given the case when you have been seen with so many other voice actors or so many other projects that they would bring their original voice actresses back. Like, I think an example of one I could think of is like the DuckTales game from 2014. They brought back the voices of Scrooge McDuck and Ock the Spiel, who were like 94 and 96 years old respectively at the time, which is, you know, saying something. It doesn't matter how old you are, you can still have the voice. And I honestly feel like she would have still made it work. And she also did a recent re-recording of the lines from the original, and it still sounded fine to me. Like, she sounded exactly like her character did back then. And it just seemed a bit unnecessary that they would just cut her out. But besides the likes of the voice role fiasco, a thing that we brought up a few times in this section, I think her character is still good, and I felt like she did years later with just some issues with the voice here and there. Speaking of voice changes, let's go on to the main male lead of the group, and this comes to the American rooster himself of Rocky. The basis of his character is the one of more someone that wants to be there for Ginger, but also in the process of wanting to be the hero and save the day, and may inexplicably mess it up in the process, or make it all turn to be a success. You never know with Rocky and stuff like that. Now, as mentioned, Ginger was not the only main lead that had a voice change. This also came to the effect of Rocky, as it's now Shazam lead Zachary Levi replacing the original voice actor of Mel Gibson. And it was this voice that felt was expected given the likes of Gibson's opinions, and they probably wanted to change it a little from being a bit of a concern. At first, the voice role for the character felt a little off, but over time it grew on me and it felt close to the original by the end of the movie. I think in some sense they could have done more with his character just slightly, but I felt that given his stories attached a bit more to Ginger's, doesn't go to the level of overdoing it and making them out to be annoying, and he just have more of a presence than some of the other characters, so I think it works in the film all the same. Now to talk on the two new additions to the cast, and this comes with a new addition to the family of Rocky and Ginger's daughter Molly, who's played by Bella Ramsey, and the new friend she meets on the mainland with Frizzle. Now, the whole approach to Molly is that she has been protected on the island by her parents, but still has that rebellious and adventurous side that her mother had, that she wants to explore and see what lies in the mainland that her mom seems to be so scared of telling her about, and will venture off on her own in the night to see what's so scary about it, and learn about the mysterious trucks and rumblings were going on across the way. This is where she will meet Frizzle, a rebellious chick like herself, who also has a very thick accent, and also will want to get herself into the supposed Funland Farms, but was denied for her being too small, and they will soon find themselves stuck inside with possible danger to them both. Will soon be a situation of finding a way out of the farm before they find themselves in their own bucket, but not all together in that capacity. In all sense, I see both of them as an interesting pair that I like the dynamic. At first, I like Molly on her own as she has become more of a presence over Frizzle. She has more of a presence anyway. For the first portion of them ending up in the farm until Frizzle is captured with her obedience collar, and it's up to Molly and the rescue team to get them out and save them all. I think in some sense by the midpoint they kind of put Frizzle on the sidelines. It's more of a driving factor for the plot going in the form of Molly leaving the island and ending up in the high security farm. I think her character is decent and gets a fair bit of development and growth. I feel they try a little with the new friend, but it gets stopped by the midpoint and then somewhat added on again near the end. I feel if they make a third movie or something, or even like a series, I'm sure they can add it onto the plot over time, but I think it's some sense that they're two of them at the moment. Molly's a decent addition to Frizzle. It seems interesting at first, but kind of feels a bit underused for Frizzle. Alright, let's talk on the other members of the team on the Fowl side of stuff, and this comes in the case of Mac the Brains, Bunty the Muscle, Babs the Wool Specials, who's just happy to be there of course, and Army General Fowler. These four become part of the elaborate group that help Ginger break into the facility and rescue their own before they get turned into deep fried food items by using some elements of their skills in some form to break in, get the rescue, and get back out without too much of a fuss. Now, it is a case that in a personal matter, I feel these characters kind of feel a little underused throughout the movie. They are present for a bit at the beginning with the Island Tranquility and the infiltrating the high-tech farm, then somewhat disappear for a stint of time before helping with rescuing the chickens from the processed end, but it's a case that they are really just absent for a fair chunk of the movie. But of all four of them, the one that gets the most sidelined is Fowler, who's just sitting on the sidelines as the getaway chicken and really kind of just waits for this all to blow over by telling stories of the war to another small creature. In fairness, I don't see how they can have much of a presence in this, but I can see where they could have used them for more of the break-in and out of the whole ordeal. But in all fairness, it was done alright, but it could have been done better and given more time to them. Now let's focus on the last duo of this one, and they will get you the equipment needed for a fair price, and this comes in the form of the rodent pair of Nick and Fletcher. They come in the form of helping in the planning and getting the crew into the facility, and also they do give a lot of effort in helping, as they become part of the duo with Rocky in the events in the form of a Mission Impossible style gadgets and stealth approach. They do make the form of helping where they can, and I think they work out well, as some provide a bit of humor in the process. They may feel a slight bit underused for the first part of the film, but in all cases they work out well overall. I think it's nice to see them back again for an escapade. I liked them in the first movie. They're kind of funny in the first movie, dropping good jokes. Now, it just leaves one more person to talk about, a face we don't expect to see return after all this time. Of course, as you may have seen there, it is only natural that the main antagonist of the original was going to make some form of a return in some way, and the reveal that it was her all this time was an interesting one. Sure, it would have been nice to reveal her in the film itself, but the way they presented it in the trailer was done very well to get people invested, with the reintroduction of Mrs. Tweedy. So the likes of Tweedy doesn't appear into the project until around the halfway mark of the movie, but her presence is felt throughout once the film brings the Funland Farms into the picture, and I think her use of being a returning villain works on her thirst for power, fame, and money, and, get away from the minuscule profits. I will kidnap thousands of chickens before she will turn back to a life of minuscule profits and the look of feeling like a Bond villain doing so. I'll make it a mission to turn every chicken into nuggets. Nuggets. I like her in the film as being just a villain who is out for revenge against the chicken that destroyed her first chance at riches and seems to do it out of spite. I think it works in all sense of the word. It would have been better if the case they kept their reveal of her return a secret until the film's release and maybe a little more of a presence in the movie, but I think they do well with her presence in it overall. They felt they couldn't make a chicken run secret on Mrs. Tweedy. Like, come on. Although I do want to know, what happened to Mr. Tweedy? Where is he? Could someone, check and tell me he's okay? But that essentially wraps up the characters in the film, as the only other presence in this movie is with the other background chickens, as well as Tweedy's newest husband of Dr. Fry, who is fine. He does not add much, but gives some exposition to their base of operations, and Sir Eats-a-Lot, or Reginald Smith, who is not a major player in the film and really has 2 scenes of being the owner of the massive food chain, so I'm not going to delve too much into him either, but in all sense of purpose, the characters work well of having a connective approach back to their original personalities. It was always a positive. Sure, some of them feel a bit underused, and some I felt the voice change was a bit unnecessary, especially mainly with Ginger. The other ones are Rocky, Nick, and Fletcher are fine. They work well, but at the end of the day, they worked well for what they had, and I can appreciate the effort that went into it all the same. So, the score to character-wise, I'm going to give around 6.5 to a 7.5.
Morning, Ginger. Back from holiday?
Now let's delve into some of the positives in the aspect of the presentation, and have to give the praise to the work and effort that is put into these movies, especially in the realm of the stop motion aesthetic, because I know the aspect of that is a more longer and arduous process compared to normal animation. Maybe not Spider-Verse, but the kind of Spider-Verse art styles, but I know because I made an awkward stop motion project for my first year of college that is somewhere online that you can probably find, or might upload on my YouTube some point in the future, I don't know. The average focus of the creation of a stop motion film will get you on average around maybe 2 seconds of footage a day, and it's impressive, especially with, being a continuous effort for around a 101-minute long film over the course of probably say more like 3 years. So if they were working a Monday to Friday job, you're getting about 10 seconds a week, you have 40 seconds a month. You're probably getting about at least a couple minutes a year. So this might take a bit of a while. I don't know. I meant to look into it down the line, but I'm just thinking in my head here. And especially with plenty of moving parts, characters, and sets that were built up, and it's impressive in design of established aesthetic from the peaceful home on the island to the Bond film look, lair, and the aesthetic of the Funland Farms interior to the sunshine look and feel of the carnival pen that they have themselves in. It's quite damn impressive that you make look lively and visually appealing, and I have to applaud them for their work and effort. The same I can give for the characters. They are quite impressive from the method. They had a whole situation where about 2 decades ago there was a bad fire at their studio that I think saw a fair amount of the items and puppets from the original film get damaged or destroyed in said fire. And the method of getting them back in the film with the accurate designs again, with slight bit updates, is quite impressive. Then again, they had some of them for some ads. I think they used Ginger for fair few ads in the past, so it's probably the case some were saved. And watching the element of going piece by piece with changing out elements and aspects from mouths and eyes, much expression tones to offering sense of work, they can even steal little bits of thumbprints and stuff throughout movies like this is always really intriguing. There is an excellent video that I'm going to link down below of the aspect of working on like a one frame scene for the movie with Rocky, and it's quite impressive. Like, it's a 20-minute video, but like it's always intriguing to watch how this process goes along and just the dedicated detail they put into it. But overall, the classic designs are great. Their new designs are very nice and stylish, helps fit a tone, balance well, and enjoy seeing them all worked out. So most case likes of most of the animation ones, I give this thing, I'm giving this a 10. That's just my own thing. I just really like the presentation and stuff in this.
I love you, Mummy.
Let's keep this section brief, and I will give my thoughts on the element that the likes of the writing is decent. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it does the job well enough that it's not to the level of being graining on the ears, that it has its fun jokes and gimmicks in there mixed amongst the selection, you know. Sure, some of the jokes don't land that often. It does seem to go on a much less darker tone compared to the original, which makes sense since the first was more of a wartime based tone. It's more of a colourful family spy film. And some side gags work and some are a bit off, but in all honesty, I see it's a fine enough tone for the writing that does not get bogged down and messy in the details. I think it works fine enough for some fun gags, a few funny jokes, and a decent straightforward narrative, so it's fine enough for me. So I give score wise 6.5 to a 7. That's my area on that side of things. So this one I kind of give much fault with, but the music is not bad in this at all either. It's nice to hear some of the all original classic themes from the first movie in there with a little bit of an updated tone to some, and to give it like, you know, if one or two licensed tracks in there that I hear now reminds me of, you know, a scary time and Not the scary music of going on a summer holiday, watches chickens march to their death. But yeah, it's intriguing to see how something so catchy and upbeat being played for a dark concept. I think it's done well when it works out well. It's always intriguing. It always works well when like it's something so upbeat and jovial to the backdrop of like something so fucked up. Some tracks I can get here and there, and they didn't focus on music too much in this movie, but I think it's a fine enough as it is. It's a common aspect that should have known. It's a common aspect you should probably know when I do these reviews that I have no knowledge really much in music, so in kind of case I'm just going off my own hubris. So it probably doesn't make much sense to you anyway. But score wise on this, I'm going to give it around a 7 to an 8. That's my score on this one. So that's what happens.
I don't want to be a pie. I don't like gravy.
So of course, like a lot of projects, as per usual, there is some usual issues and complaints that come from the film, and there are a few small issues that I will have with the film itself, and I'll be giving a rundown of some of the small complaints for each of the sections as I can. So we'll start with story. This one is mainly on the case of the film being a bit more lighter compared to the darker tone of the original. I think having a sort of fair balance of it would work a little bit more. It's not much of a massive issue or connected in connection with a more upbeat spy flick, but going for a bit more of a balance of it would work a bit more better. Like, I like the sort of darker tone of the original film, and I like this upbeat tone where it's kind of like, you know, that change you want to appeal for the kids and stuff, but like some of the fans might in the back would be like for a little darker tone of things, but it does have a here and there, but it's not as much. So next then is characters. This one is just a little with some of the characters feeling a slightly bit underused, such as, you know, Fowler and Frizzle and a few of the other free hens besides Ginger, Rocky and Molly. And maybe slightly earlier appearance for Mrs. Tweedy as well as learning what happened to Mr. Tweedy, because they don't really acknowledge it in the film. I think they do behind the scenes, but I don't know. That could have worked a little more with the balanced screen time for character. Also, some of the choices for the change of voice cast for some, of course, mainly with Ginger, is an issue, but as it works in some elements and others it doesn't, but that's really all the complaints I'm giving that aspect. Next then is writing. Some of the elements of the undermining of jokes in the film can be a little flat aspect, as there's a bit of a lack of jokes here and there. There's some slight gags and jokes that do work, but it feels a little kind of underbaked here, but that's really all I can give on that. Then the basis of music, it's mainly on the case of some tracks that can get overlooked or an underuse of a here and there, but not a completely bad soundtrack and score in general. That's really all I have to say on my main issues or something I can gather from this movie. Again, all minor small points but it's a fair balance of giving both the positive and negatives when it comes to any projects. And you know, with some aspects I probably don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just rambling here, so this is just my own opinion, so please don't take this as like, you know, gospel. So overall, after 20 plus years since the original outing, and back and forth, recastings, a devastating fire, and some studio changes later, the follow-up to the original Chicken Run with Donald the Nugget seems like a well-made and established follow-up to the film that started a legacy of full-length films in their award-winning company with entertaining feats of visuals, story, and characters, and all seem like we only just seen them recently and haven't changed a day. And it did follow up in a capacity where, like, over time, they won a lot more awards. I mean, their next movie, which was Curse the Were-Rabbit, did win an Oscar, so yeah. I might talk about that film someday, but I'll probably do it for the DreamWorks rewatch-a-thon. That's the end of the line. Sure, the more lighter tone and the spy flick-based approach compared to the war tone of the original may feel a little bit too kiddie for the fans of the original, but as someone who really enjoyed the original as a kid, I was excited for this one. It did not disappoint with that much to me at all, and I feel like if you haven't seen it yet, I'd say give it a watch. It's available on Netflix, and make your own opinions on it yourself, and be in for a little tasty treat that will either make you hungry for food or make you think of other concerning aspects, or maybe just leave you a bad taste in your mouth. It depends on your stuff. So overall scores in this, I'm going to give story a 7, characters I'm giving a 6.5 to 7.5, presentation I gave a 10, writing is 6.5 to 7, and music a 7 to 8. So a total score between out of 50 is a 37 to 39.5, or around a total score of a 74 to 79%. So a sort of high B minus to a high B. And with all of that, I would like to know your own thoughts on this movie, and I hope you enjoyed listening to my review on this, and I'd like to know your thoughts on the original and on this sequel. And have you seen the films, and did you love it, like it, did you hate it, or are you indifferent about it in particular? And tell me your own thoughts about what you enjoyed about it, what you didn't like about it, and just give me all your opinions down below, and we'll discuss them there. I'd love to have a conversation with anyone about what they liked about the movie. But as always, I hope you all stay being wonderful people, and have a great day every day. Of course, doing many great things, and remember to keep being you, because no one else can do what you do. And, you know, that's where I'm going to leave it now. I'm sure I'll see you all in the next review or blog. So take care, everyone, and farewell.